Thanks for tuning into another episode of the CIASP podcast. I'm here with my friend Adam Ivy, coming to us live from Kissimmee, Florida. So in this whole new series, this is like 3 out of 4 are Florida people. So this is amazing. Their music is happening in the Sunshine State. So man, how's it going in Kissimmee this morning?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's enjoyable for the first couple hours before it gets way too hot for the next couple of months. We have a 13-month-old daughter, and she loves walking around outside. And I'm always just asking her, I'm like, "You sure you want to be outside? It's a little hot. Like, Daddy's getting sunburned." I'm like translucently pale, so it takes me about 7 minutes to get third-degree sunburn outside here. But no, I mean, I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I'll take the heat any day.
Man, I'm like I said before we jumped in, I've been following you for a while. That sounds creepy, but we know what that means in 2024. So on the YouTube. So I'm excited to introduce you to the CIS fam. But I like to start at the beginning. So where did kind of your music journey begin?
So this is exactly play by play how it happened. Growing up, my mother played violin. My dad was a DJ. My grandmother was a pianist and an organist at like 5 different Catholic churches where I grew up. So music was always in the household, everything from classic rock to country to polka to early days of hip hop and stuff like that. Just a real wide variety of things that we're listening to. And in high school, I played trumpet for 2 or 3 years, technically cornet, which is just a stubby trumpet, drums for like half of a season when one of the guys was out with injury. But then fast forward to 2005, I have been working in a wood window factory, part of the Carpenters Union, doing that for 3 or 4 years, and bumped in to someone who is now like a brother to me, one of my best friends in the world. His name's Zach. Zach was working at the post office and lived with one of my near and dear friends from when I was a little kid. When you're in your early 20s and you buy a big house, you rent out all the rooms to people that need rooms so you can pay your mortgage a little easier. So Zach was living with my buddy Jim, and introduced myself, and he's just like, "Hey, if you want to keep talking, I'd love to, but I'm working on a project I need to finish up downstairs." I'm like, okay. I knew that Zach was a DJ, but I had no idea that he did this like custom production. So went down into the room he was renting. He's eating like pizza rolls or something. And I walk into the spaceship, which at the time was just amazing. Now it'd be like, oh yeah, it's a like basic home studio. But he had a Digi 002. He had some, decent monitors. He had this little Korg 49 key MIDI controller and 2 screens. I think it was the first time that I ever saw somebody with dual monitors, right? It's 2005. It wasn't common.
It's a big deal.
No, and he was producing in Reason. And I believe he had Pro Tools 5 or something at the time. So I'm just sitting there and I'm just in awe of what this is. I'm like, "You made this? This is incredible. Wow." And in that moment, I had asked him, "Hey, can you give me like a basic list of things I would need to like learn how to do this?" So on the back of a, junk mail, on the back of an envelope, he wrote down, Reason, because that's what he was using. I need some type of laptop. I didn't own a computer at the time. I needed a MIDI controller. And then he's like, "You don't need speakers. You just need headphones. Just get a decent set of headphones." So I had sold a 2001 CBR 929RR motorcycle with 1 million miles on it. Sold that and used that money to buy this little makeshift rig. Ironically, a month or 2 later, my lease at my 1-bedroom apartment was up, and Jim had an extra room in his house that he offered me. So I was like, I understood the power of mentorship before I knew what mentorship was. I'm like, if I lived down the hall from this guy, I could learn and he could teach me, and we get along pretty well. And I've known Jim since I was like 12 years old. And so I move in with Jim. I take the rest. This is so irresponsible, but I take the rest of the money that I had from the motorcycle sale and I quit my job so I could focus on learning music production. Like I said, if I'm just going to dabble with it, because I was working 12, 14 hours a day. It was a very blue collar, very manual labor intensive job that I was doing. So I quit my job, figured out how to use Reason. And then I was just like a little kid. I'd do something. "Hey, can you check this out? Hey, how can I do this better? Hey, do you have any advice? Hey, what would you do here?" And I fell in love with it so much that in April of 2007, so I moved in with Jim in 2006, moved to Florida in 2007. just to kind of test myself as a young adult, as a man, as a ambitious entrepreneur without really labeling myself at the time. And I moved down to Florida, got a kind of a crappy day job and figured it out. And by 2009, I had lost my job at a place that I thought I had stability when the market kind of crashed and housing was crazy and gas was $5 a gallon. And I said, I thought I had stability here and I got the rug pulled from under me. I'm not going to put my future and my peace in somebody else's hands. And so between 2009 and 2010, I was doing every side hustle you could think of. I was building WordPress websites. I was doing graphic design, all this stuff, to where then that led me to doing music full time. I know I went a little bit ahead of your question, but that's how it started. And that's how it really pulled me into doing it as a career.
No, that's awesome. And I think that's a perfect, segue into doing it, because ultimately you just made it work. You didn't know how or what that even meant, but it was just grinding, and just your mind was like, okay, I need to fill these gaps. How do I do that? And it's like, got to move in with Jim. Then, okay, now I got to go to Florida. And now, I mean, like you said, you quit. You said it was irresponsible, but when you're probably early 20s, it's like, what's responsibility at that point? It's like, who cares? You can do whatever you want when you're early 20s, So,
yeah.
So then to take that and just feel like you were so inspired by the spaceship that you're like, man, I need to build a space station of my own. And you literally moved to by the Space Coast. Maybe there's something there. Who knows?
True story.
Yeah. So, okay. So you dug in, you went literally all in, and like you said, you didn't even realize you're being mentored, but you're kind of going there. So then 2007, 2009, you're doing music. And I know that you kind of started off, you were beat building, right? Wasn't that kind of your first entrance into professional music making?
Yeah. So, I don't tell the story a lot. I'm proud of it and embarrassed of it at the same time. When I first started, I thought I was going to be a rapper. I moved into Jim's house thinking that I'll learn how to produce, but I wanted this guy that I met that knew how to make all these beats. I wanted him to produce songs for me. So I recorded probably 5 or 6 songs, and for 3 months, I think we're around the same age, give or take a little bit of a gap, but for 3 months, I was in the top 50 unsigned artists on MySpace as a rapper named Tony Gates. Don't ask me about that. I felt very fake doing it. And so it didn't take long for me to say, I am not a rapper. I just want to make the music. I just want to be the producer. And so I started going by my real name shortly after, and just started making beats and producing, but I was still writing. I would do hooks, and then I would have artists that had better delivery or better voices record them. I'd send them a very rickety makeshift reference vocal, have them do it. And those beats were selling for way more money a lot more often. So I just kept doing it. And a lot of people didn't realize I was writing the majority of that stuff. Yeah, that was my forte into doing music full time, is being a producer, being a beat maker, a composer, and kind of filling in the gaps where I was needed or where the opportunities were.
Love that. Yeah. You seeing what worked, filling the need, and then doing that over and over again. So in that process, now fill in the gaps here that I'm missing, but how did you go from rapper to producer, ghost producer, right, to YouTube? Where did YouTube begin in this kind of trajectory? Because I know that's a big part of your journey as well.
For sure. I started a YouTube channel in 2009. My current YouTube channel is 2010, because back then you couldn't change your channel name. So I had to start a new channel if I wanted a new channel name. So I started a new channel in 2010, brought some of those videos over. I was inspired by people like Ryan Leslie. I was inspired by people like Misto and Pizzy, who became friends later down the road. MDL Productions. There's just so many people that are like OG Ronald Jenkins, people that are were huge on YouTube back then, but some of them are still around. Some of them have kind of gone into different things. I wanted to show my process. I thought if I could inspire other people to make beats or attract artists that needed beats, I could kind of become a brand. I didn't even know it at the time, but I could become a brand. I could become a face that they recognize and that they could build trust with. And they would know, oh, when Adam's making a beat for me, he's in this environment. He's doing these things. This is what he looks like. This is what it looks like. And so I did, I don't know, over the years, I've done probably a dozen or two of those beat making videos. But just like anything in life, I was really trying to test the waters in so many different things and see what sticks, right? It took me 8 years to hit 50,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, just trying to figure it out. And then when I figured it out, it took less than 18 months to surpass 200,000 subscribers, where now I'm at 300 something, like low 300s. But I'm a builder, man. You know, I had a import car dealership, import tuner car dealership when I was 19 with a guy that it didn't really do anything. We kind of dissolved it, but I've always kind of been a hustler, making shift boots and stuff, because I'm really into like cars and fitness, and music wasn't my first love, but I fell heavy and hard and heavy for it. But YouTube made me feel like I could matter, where in central Wisconsin growing up, I was always told, you know, it's a story that not too many people know, but like I had a Lamborghini and an R8 and a bunch of like a couple exotic cars, and my license plate said bad GPA because my guidance counselor in high school, I sat down with her, Mrs. Tokarts, shout out to Mrs. Tokarts. I told her I wanted to be, I told her that I wanted to be, I think it was an architectural engineer, and because I loved math, I loved drawing, I wanted to be an architect. And she's like, Adam, that's really cool, but you should have thought about that a few years ago, because you have a really bad GPA, and the best path for you would probably just get a really good job at a factory and work your way up, and you can make good money. And, you know, that's what I did for 4 years after high school. I worked in a factory and I worked my way up. And, you know, at 20 years old, 21 years old, I was making mid 40s, which for central Wisconsin my apartment at the time was $399 a month for a brand new apartment, 740 square feet with a garage, heat and electric included. So I was living the dream, because central Wisconsin was super cheap to live in at the time. But I knew there was more to life than that. And so I jumped off and moved down here and hated Florida for like the first year or so, and fell in love with it and found my wife. And now I'm living a very fulfilling life.
Man, so it sounds like you are an architect. You just aren't designing houses. You're designing businesses, designing people. But that's in you, right?
Yeah.
The builder, the designer, you know, because I know that you've spoken a bunch about systems. And I also I wanted to bring up too, I saw your video, your Insta about big butts, right? Like that was like such an encouraging video about people that you surround. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because I know that's really important for like people listening to know you are the sum of the people that you hang out with. So can you dive into that a little bit?
I've always been weird when it came to trusting my heart, trusting my intuition. I'm 39 years old, and I don't put myself above really anyone, maybe a few people in life, but I don't typically think that I'm better than anybody. And I say that as a preface to, in high school, we all bump into the kids that start drinking or start partying and smoking. And I was in martial arts for 12 years. I was in love with that family unit that I developed with kids older than me and younger than me. And I became a black belt at 12 years old or something. And somehow, through some influence, I would push away my friends that started drinking or smoking cigarettes. And then I found friends, and then I found out, 17, 18 years old, they're smoking weed. And I'm like, not that they're bad people, but at the time I felt like, oh, that's going to pull me into the wrong path. Like I don't, my parents smoked growing up. My parents drank. It just like, it was an environment and a situation. I wasn't interested in it. Right. So I would cut out people from my life because I had a feeling that they weren't the right people. And I'd give them a chance. And I usually was pretty open to speaking about what I didn't like, hey, I'll come over, but if you guys start drinking, I'm going to leave. Hey, if I'm going to come over, or we're riding in my car because you're not allowed to smoke in my car. Like I knew they were good people, but just with some habits that I didn't love.
Yeah.
And not trying to control anybody, but trying to control my environment a little bit. And same goes for life. When people have been kind of leeches or vampires as far as you talk to them. I've had near and dear friends where I have this realization that they light up when you start gossiping about people, or when you start complaining about something, or when you start portraying the victim mentality. And I've been through adversity. I was homeless at 17 years old, and I never really bring that up because it's like, so what? I'm 39 now, right?
Yeah.
And the things that we have to sort out, the situations that we have to resolve, and the situations that we have to solve on our own should, in my opinion, lead us to other people that are in the same mindset, not the people that would pull you down in that situation. So I always joke that my circle of friends is tighter than my wedding ring, because it's just, you want to surround yourself with people that uplift. You want to also, in the same breath, I don't think I ever talk about this, you have to become brave enough to speak up for yourself. Because it's easy when you're going to people that you look up to, or your parents, or a loved one of some sort, a friend that you've known forever. It takes bravery to stop them in their tracks and say, like, hey, look, I know that that's what you believe right now, but I don't need that in my life. I don't need that.
Yeah.
It's because there's a lot of times where people will try to keep you safe from advice coming from a place that has never been where you're trying to go. I saw a really good TikTok today where there was a pastor of some sort, and he was up on stage with a guy that was a member of the church who was a bodybuilder. And I don't know if you've seen this clip. It was so good. And the pastor's like, we go to the same gym. I just realized recently we go to the same gym, but I don't look like him because he takes the gym into his life. And I use the gym to validate my life.
Ooh.
And it was so strong because he was relating it to, obviously, church, how different patrons of the church or different parishioners can get different things out of it. Same goes for being a creative. Same goes for being a visionary. Same goes for being a parent, an entrepreneur, a musician, which for a lot of us is like the same thing, right?
Yep.
And so I think that when you have that vision really guiding your life and you trust in God. I never push it on anybody too hard, but I'm a Christian. I believe in my faith. I believe in God. I believe in more elevated calling for my life. And you got to trust that God will give you the vision to identify opportunities, whether they're good or bad, not just deliver you with all this abundance of greatness, right? And so in my life, I've been pretty good at saying either I can bring life into this person and come with me, or this person brings life into me, I'm going to come with them. And just trying to keep the frequency high, because that's, in my opinion, that's what life's all about, is trying to be in high frequency and trying to figure out what your triggers are for low frequency. In fact, just the other day, I told my wife right before lunch, she goes, hey, are you okay? It was a Saturday, 2 days ago. And I said, yeah, I feel like something's pulling me into low frequency. I feel a little bit of like depression, even though I don't want to label it that. And then I'm looking at, okay, what did I drink this morning? What did I eat this morning? Might have a little bit like a blood sugar issue. I might be too sedentary. I love moving. I'm a busybody. So I'm like, maybe I'm just sitting around too much. Within 2 hours, I felt like I was on top of the world again. So I really think that it's about discovering yourself and then figuring out what type of people in your life make you feel fulfilled in what you do and feel like you're living within your purpose. But yeah, I think that keeping your circle very small and protecting your peace and realizing that you are not for everyone, and that's okay. Took me way too many years to figure that out. But, I think that stepping into different chapters is always going to be the fun part of life. It's like, who you are and getting really, really good at that. And then who am I going to become? Because we shouldn't be complacent with who we are as we get older and mature and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think it's the discernment piece, right? It's like the world will define discernment as, trust your gut or whatever. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not it. But like, I think so much of our decision-making process does come down to discernment. And as we're, leaning into where God is calling us, that is the way that we can fully be as efficient as possible. And obviously we make tons of mistakes, and that's part of learning, but try at least being aware of those feelings. And yeah, I think it does point to, who the people that we are surrounding ourselves with are going to determine what we do. Because, if you don't want to be in that circle, then you can't put yourself in it. And I think too, like, the big thing that I know, this is like a cliche expression, but lately, because I just turned 40 in March, so we're about the same area here. But
Awesome.
like, it's like not being afraid to address the elephant in the room. Because I feel like so much of my life being like a non-confrontational peacemaker personality type is like, I'll talk around the thing and try to skirt by the thing. And then it just ends up just wasting time. And then I just end up rambling about nothing. Like, I was at a church for 6 years, and, there was, as a worship leader there, and, it didn't go great at the end, and that's fine. But if not for that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's totally fine. But like at this new church that I'm leading worship at now, I'm not afraid to talk about it like it didn't happen, because we all learn and grow through our experiences. So like just like cutting through the crap and being like, okay, like this is a part of the story. I did this and it led me to here, and that's fine. But ultimately, like when we surround ourselves with people who inspire us and are where like we want to go, and then turn it around, we get to inspire others with where they want to go. Because I love you mentioned something about you want to surround yourself with dreamers and people who think about the future, and not just like, oh, the gas is too expensive, the housing market's crazy, like all that. Sure, we can like think about those scarcity mindsets, but when we open our minds and surround ourselves with other people who are actually getting after something, like you said, like if people are lighting up about trash talking or gossip, that is what is going to start. You're going to do that to like light them up. It's just natural. I think human instinct makes us want to please the people around us. So like surrounding ourselves with others is the way to do that. So, I mean, you do a lot of mentoring, and obviously you do the YouTube thing to inspire. And I know that, we're kind of talking about this already, but like, you're kind of in this season of life, because when I started, coming into your world, like you were pre-married, pre-baby, pre a lot of things. So what are some things in this season as you're looking ahead that have kind of been some big shifts? I know there's like lots, but like as far as maybe professionally and also personally that you're kind of like leaning into in the future.
So many of them, man. I look back at some of my older content from around the time that you bumped into my stuff, and I feel guilty. I try not to, but I feel guilty because I didn't have a whole lot of responsibility. I was also a marketing director for a tech company while doing music and YouTube content, and started dating my wife, to where I had no money worries at all. I was making a healthy 6 figures as a marketing director. I was making 6 figures with my music. I was living very frugally. So I had a bunch of money in the bank and going to the gym 7 days a week and just focused on just living. And I would make content. And I was so inspired by and hyped up by other podcasts and books that I was reading and people that I would talk to, and other YouTubers that I would slowly build relationships with. And I had this, and I still operate by this, but I try to give more grace than I used to, where it's like, if you're not where you want to be, it's because you're wasting time and you stay up later, get up. It was like almost hustle culture stuff. And in that season of my life, it really served me. So I was speaking to myself, but I didn't realize how much life would change once I got married, even once we welcomed our beautiful little daughter into the world. And even things like, I'm not going to get into it too much, but my wife and I had a miscarriage before our daughter. So, it's one of those things where you don't realize the impact of loss. You don't you understand the impact of commitment. You don't understand the impact of now you bring a beautiful little human into the world that is unlocking levels of love and emotions that you never have felt in your life. It's a supernatural occurrence. And it made me realize that the things that I wanted in my 20s are not the things that I want now. The things that I wanted 5 years ago are not the things I really value now. Like I said earlier, I had a Lamborghini. Cool. I don't really care about it. In fact, one of the people that, so a buddy of mine and myself co-founded a supercar rally a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, when I had those cars, and we would do quarterly events benefiting children's organizations, Toys for Tots, St. Jude's, Nemours. And we would do all these rallies and get all these rich guys together, and we would donate and give toys away. It was like really, really fulfilling. And somebody on one of the rallies is like, hey, do you have an Instagram account for your car? And I thought it was such a strange question. I said, no. Well, what's your Instagram account? I told them, and they looked, they're like, where's your car? I'm like, it's a car. It's not. I never want my identity to be attached to a car or a watch or a jet ski. Like I am me. And that was an eye-opening question. I know they didn't realize how much it impacted me, but I'm like, man, there's a whole lot more to life than things, and memories are what matter. The journey is what matters. Getting through adversity, getting through the struggle, sacrificing. That's what life is about, which leads you to the cool things, the cool events, the nice things, the opportunities to live a more abundant life. And obviously that leads to being able to give to others in need, donate to charitable and nonprofit organizations that matter to you, and do some pretty awesome stuff. But I used to just be about being selfish. I mean, making music as a music producer, sitting in my room 18 hours a day, a lot of times, to sell beats online so I could pad my bank account and get accolades working with this artist or this TV show or this commercial brand business, whatever. That was incredibly self-serving and selfish. And when I shifted over to helping people, I fell in love with it before I ever offered mentorship or a course or free downloads or anything, affiliate income, nothing. Like, I just wanted to share. One thing I don't share as much as I probably should is I lost hearing in my left ear in 2016. I went legally deaf. I could still hear, but it's like very, very, very muffled. It's like Charlie Brown teacher type of deal. And that's when I started teaching people, because at that time I was just a selfish, money-hungry producer trying to, I look at music production, especially back then, like bodybuilding. If I want to be number one in the world on stage, I'm going to box everybody out and I'm just going to work on me. I'm going to go to the gym and get my reps in and not tell anybody of the secret stuff, like marketing, branding, communication skills, talking to people, spreadsheets. And once I went, had a hearing impairment, I said, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do music anymore. I remember making a Facebook post, which years later I deleted because I was kind of embarrassed by it. But I'm writing this thing, sitting on my phone crying because I feel like a part of me is dying because I worked so hard at that point, the past 10 years to get to where I was. And I said, you know what? If I'm not going to be able to kind of harbor all these things that I'm doing, I didn't even look at it like a strategy or tactics. This is what I'm doing, my system, then I'm going to share it with the world. And as petty and as embarrassing as this sounds, I'm being very transparent. When I in that moment thought, I'll let them fight for the scraps. Forget about them. Like I'll give them everything I'm doing and let them run themselves ragged because these people don't have work ethic like I do. Again, selfish, very self-serving, cocky in a lot of ways. I barely graduated from high school, dude. And now looking at how many people passively or directly that I believe that I've changed their life in one small way or the other, it's kind of hilarious. It's kind of shocking to me. And again, God will provide opportunities. It's up to us to see them, because I see so many people music is my plan A. I'm not going to get distracted by anything else, when something else, like I tell you about me becoming a marketing director for a tech company, that came from doing a parody video that went viral. And then all these companies reached out to me looking for the viral video YouTube guy. And I just went along with it. I was like, yeah, this is what I did. But I'd show up to the Zoom calls with a collared shirt, sometimes a suit and a tie, some cheap JCPenney suit that I bought. And I would just talk strategy, and I would talk, a lot of these books behind me inspired me to be a little bit more professional with how I explain myself. And so instead of this hip hop music producer that has the fitted caps on YouTube and stuff, I would just show up and I'd have my hair done and I'd be a professional. And even though I do not think you need a suit and tie to be a professional now, I think that you and I are dressed the part already. I knew I wanted to step into a new identity that was beyond anything I've ever experienced. So got to figure it out as you go. But I was going based on the cues that I saw in the world. And, it led me to a point where, I have scaled 2 7-figure businesses. I've had a couple 6-figure businesses that I've kind of stepped away from, and a whole lot of crash and burns along the way. But again, I'm a builder. I love building. I love building other people up. I love building my family up. I love building businesses. I love taking an idea and seeing how can I attach legs to this little guy and see if it can go off into the world on its own. I have so many ideas to this point that I'm intimidated by that I could share, but I don't need anybody taking my ideas. And that's I think that's what keeps me feeling like a kid, having fun with life. I get bored like anybody else doing the same stuff over and over, but how can you reinvent yourself? How can you do those things that bring value to the world, but in a way that's fun for you again? Because I say this all the time, even if you and I were professional butterfly catchers, there would be days where we wake up, we kiss our spouse, we roll over, look at that butterfly net and say, I don't want to do this today. No matter what we do, no matter how fun it is, at one point it's going to become an obligation, and obligation leads to resentment. So if anybody's watching this or listening right now, if you feel obligated by creating music, let's try to break that. Let's try to go back to your why, go back to why you're doing it, because it's not going to get any easier. But if you're the guy that brings life into other people by being at a studio session or making content that brings excitement into other people's life, let me tell you, the power of God, the power of what we're capable of to live through him, be able to breathe life into other people with excitement, charisma, being a charismatic individual who is passionate and believes in what they're doing, that is supernatural. Imagine somebody watching this or listening to this right now from the Philippines or New Zealand or heck, even Washington State, other corner of the country, and they get inspired. We are literally taking something in our heart and our mind and putting it through the media outlets that is going to be able to resonate with somebody from around the world that might never see our face. Hopefully they do in some capacity, but it breathes life into them and it reinvigorates their excitement for what they're doing in a way that's going to impact their family, impact their life, and ultimately impact generations if they do it the right way. But it requires having fun. It requires being excited. It requires having that spark that we have as a kid. And that's one thing we have to protect at all costs.
Man, I love all of that. And I'm a big believer in that too. Like whatever spark got us into this, it's still there, right? It just gets like snuffed out with like responsibility or whatever, like that's kind of what it is. But like it's that constant pursuit of getting back to that. And it seems like in your journey, the thing that you haven't necessarily had to do like everything that you've thought you were going to do, because you're kind of, what's the lowest hanging fruit, right? That old adage, right? Like, I did a YouTube video, and I think that was a YouTube video. Didn't you do like, it was like a McDonald's type parody, right? Was that the one?
The funny thing about that is, Wiz Khalifa had a song years and years and years ago called Black and Yellow. It was like one of his first breakout hits. And I'm driving to the gym of all places while doing music full time in 2010, maybe early 2011, because I released it in early 2011. So I probably wrote it and recorded it and did everything in late 2010. And I'm driving to the gym, true story, heard Black and Yellow on the radio. And then a McDonald's commercial came on immediately afterwards. And I just started like freestyling the notes in my, iPhone 4 at the time, maybe. I'm like writing notes. I go back to my little 1-bedroom apartment where I had this vocal booth literally with all of, I'm sure you've been there too. I had thumbtacked into the wall in this little coat closet, bath towels, old rugs that I wasn't using. There was not one piece of professional gear. And I recorded this entire thing. I sat there and just tweaked it. I've always engineered just by ear, which sucks when you can't hear anymore. But I got it to a point I was happy with it. Then this is like a crazy small world moment, right? So I had been following a comedian on YouTube that I became buddies with, who lives down in Jupiter, named Will Hatcher.
All right.
Will Hatcher came up and shot the Red and Yellow video for me. He put it on his channel. I put it on mine. He put it on his channel as kind of, I didn't really pay him anything to help direct it. So I was like, you could post it on yours too and get attention. Two sides of the story that are exciting to share with you. One, the Wolverine Deadpool trailer just came out like 3 weeks ago, maybe. And it had a version of Red and Yellow. I think Wiz Khalifa recorded a version just for the Wolverine and Deadpool movie. And all of a sudden, my old 15-year-old, not even 12-year-old parody got like another 10,000 views in the course of like 3 days with a ton of comments. People are like, oh my God, they used your song. I'm like, they didn't use my song, but thank you so much. And then Will Hatcher, who directed the video, he goes by King Willonius online. Just in the last 6 months, if you have heard the song BBL Drizzy, Will Hatcher is the one who created that AI song that Metro Boomin then used for this viral video or this viral moment. So Will Hatcher, 2010, 2011, friend of mine, the music video that we did is more relevant than it has been in the last 8-9 years. And Will is now being interviewed by like Forbes on the future of AI music. So it's just awesome when people, again, your circle, people that inspire you. And I'm going to go down to Jupiter here in the next few weeks and interview him about the state of the music industry and how AI is impacting things and what he's been up to. And so it's just this full 360-degree moment, it's full circle moment really, where two guys just trying to be funny, just trying to have fun, 12, 13 years later are still doing it in different ways and still having fun. So
that's great. Yeah. What a cool, the Wolverine Deadpool movie is a big deal. So for that to hit there is like, that's amazing. So what are some ways, because people listening here, they're like, they love to do it. They love doing music, whatever they're doing. But like, what are some ways that you've found to kind of keep it fresh, keep it fun? Like, what if you had to like cut out? How do you reframe it to get back to the joy of the whole?
One thing, time and time again, that I got burnt out from when I was doing music full time, because complete transparency, I have a studio. I love it. I still make music, but I stepped away from doing it full time a few years ago, maybe 2018, because I have other things that life has provided me with now.
Yeah.
But I'll always make music. I get really bored really fast. And I start feeling, like I said, a little bit of a resentment when I was making music that I didn't really like the message of. And I woke up one day and I said, I'm done. Hard stop. I'm not going to produce this type of hip hop music anymore, because when people are sending me the songs, and don't get me wrong, it's happened with R&B and pop as well, but when they're sending me the songs, this is not something I'd be proud to play for my mom or my girlfriend or anybody in my life. It's bad, in my opinion. Not bad in general, but you get it. Yep. And so I shifted over to pop music. I was sick and tired of trying to convince broke rappers to give me $25 to use the beat that they were so convinced that they wanted. And so I said, I actually had a great conversation with a friend and mentor of mine, Mike Molina. He's like a big time music producer now. And Mike said, the money is in the UK in pop records. Like, people in the UK have no problem paying, and the pop artists are the ones where the money is. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. So I started making pop music, top 40 type stuff. And admittedly, when I started, I just listened to what was on the radio, because that's not what I was making. And so I'd say, okay, there's a new Pitbull record, there's a new Neo record, there's a new Rihanna record. Let me make something that's an essence of this without being a copycat beat. And all of a sudden, those started selling like hotcakes. And so I said, how can I push the envelope and make my own sound out of this? So I came up with some signature drum kits and stuff that I would use over and over and over and over and over again. And money started coming in, like really good money started coming in. And then A&Rs were reaching out, and artists from other countries were reaching out. And it just felt way more aligned with who I was and stuff I could be really, really proud of. That led to some sync placement opportunities with, co-producing with other people and having great conversations with music supervisors and sync directors and all that stuff. If somebody out there is feeling very down in the dumps and that spark feels like it's almost extinguished, shift outside of your norm. Make something else. If you're making pop music, make country music. I mean, you look at artists like Post Malone, who's gone through the gamut of musical styles now, and he's been successful because he's excited about it. He brings this weird childlike joy and passion into what he's doing, and he's essentially writing the masterclass on how you can go from one identity to another while being yourself the entire time.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think I know for me personally, like that's something that I've battled is, okay, I'm supposed to find a lane. I'm supposed to niche down or however you're supposed to say it, and like, but like at the end of the day, like if that's causing us to not like the thing that we're doing, then it's okay. It's like, yeah, it's like permission to like let it go, because I know for me, like once I start, like I'm committed to something, I will do that thing for the rest of my life, even if it's like it stops being productive, just because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do, So like giving yourself permission, like you said, to like just kind of freely move about the cabin, right? Like you've done a ton of stuff, and you still, 39 years old, you still have a lot of life ahead of you. And who knows this, we do the podcast again in 5 years, you're going to have a whole bunch of new stories to tell, but like I think that's really critical to anyone listening. It's like, man, if you're doing the thing that like you just like, okay, maybe the industry tells me this is what I should be doing, but like it doesn't resonate with me, but I'm trying to force it essentially, like then stop doing that, because it's all it's going to do is just going to waste your energy, and it's going to keep you from moving towards the thing that you're supposed to be doing in the first place. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
we just did it. We wrote a song we host a yearly songwriter retreat. We have people come here from all over the country. We wrote a song. I want to write a fast song because if for whatever reason in the church world, there's not a lot of fast songs. And it's like my nephew asked me, why does Christian music sound so sad? I'm like, I don't know, AJ, let's figure this out. So like I have a passion to write fast ones. So we did. And as I'm starting to produce the stems for worship, I'm like, okay, I feel like I should just try to make a industry cool. I was like, I'm just going to make a song that makes me happy, and that is, if I'm going to carry the thing, it's going to translate. And we actually shared it yesterday, and the church loved it. So it's like, and have people already asking me like, hey, can I hear this? We want to use it at our church. It's like, this is the goal as a, songwriter to do that. But it came from a place of like not worrying about what I'm supposed to do and just doing what motivates me to do the thing. So I feel like that's what we're talking about here for sure. So with that, you are staying very aware, like, hey, I want to do pop music because it's like I feel led to that, and then like figuring that out. It's not just like nothing's going to magically happen, right? I mean,
Right.
I feel like your story has so much grit involved, right? I love that quote from Will Smith. Is like, I'm never gonna, be the best looking person. I'm never gonna be the most talented, but I'm gonna outwork everybody in the room. And I know that could be like intimidating in and of itself, but it does just require just like the work ethic, but also too, if you're chasing the passion that makes you happy, then it's going to give you the juice to keep moving forward. So like, how much outside of like your actual habit of like work wise, like, how do you, because obviously you're doing a lot of stuff now, you've got, your husband, your dad, like how do you balance it all to where you're not working 75 hours a day?
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll circle back in 5 years and I'll let you know when I figure it out. But I know it sounds woo-woo, man, but I look at my own frequency, right? I have, it sounds really dramatic. It's not that bad, not that big a deal, but I have what's called Hashimoto's disease, which is a hypothyroidism. And so my levels have been all over the place over the last few years. I'm finally dialed in with some good thyroid medication. But I realized that I am not nearly as productive after I eat lunch as I am in the morning. So started getting up at 5 a.m. when our daughter was maybe 4 or 5 months to do the morning feed when she started sleeping in her own crib. And side note, I miss those days. It was just such a peaceful moment, man. And as soon as she didn't need that feed anymore and we would just let her sleep until she'd have to get up around 8 o'clock, I said, you know what? I'm not going to sleep in. And don't get me wrong, I do sometimes till 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock is sleeping in because she gets up. But I get up at 5:30 every morning. I get to the office 2-3 hours before the rest of my guys for the business, my employees get there. Or this is my home studio, so a lot of times I work out of here. But I find that I'm most productive between 5:30 in the morning and noon, 11:30. And then I have a hard stop every day at 3:45 because my family takes a walk around our neighborhood for about an hour at 4:20 when Lennon, that's my daughter's name, when Lennon wakes up from her nap. And I prioritize that no different than a sales call, no different than an opportunity with the sponsor, like no different than this. That's important. That's part of my life. I don't need to be the father who's making $5 million a year, but is never around. Right. I grew up in a family where my mom always was working 2 or 3 jobs. My dad was a stay-at-home dad who was a hustler. He did cash jobs like in the winter in Wisconsin. He had a old Ford Bronco with a plow on it. So he'd go plow businesses and stuff. And so like, that's the work ethic that was instilled in me. But also as a busybody, like I mentioned earlier, I am notorious for needing to stay moving. And I think that just finding value and peace is so important. And finding everybody that's watching or listening to this is going to be different. If you're a night owl, if you are in the highest frequency, the most inspired, the most productive between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., so have it. The whole entrepreneur morning routine. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day and I do a cold plunge and that's not for everybody. That's just what inspires them, or they're making it up. Either way, I'm not here to judge, but I am just trying to do the $1,000 tasks rather than focusing on $10 tasks. So many times we step over dollars to pick up dimes. And in doing business for so long and now having so many responsibilities to my family beyond just providing financially, you have to get really smart with how you work and realize that all those fun ideas, not all of them are going to be producers for you. Some of them can be hobbies, and you can schedule those out as well. But you need to keep your health and fitness sharp. You need to look at what, and I say that I'm sure you're familiar with it, but the $1,000 to $10,000 tasks are what's moving the needle forward in your business. What's moving the needle forward with your goals financially, growth wise, honestly, even with the family. I might, get a lot more out of spending 3 hours cleaning the house and getting all organized than I would just watching TV with the family. Right. So it's like, you have to prioritize your time and then protect your time. And so I don't think you have to work, 14 hours a day. I don't think that you have to work 14 days a week, and I think that so many people even ask me 10 years ago, and I would have been like, oh, I only have to get 5 hours of sleep. Bro, I get like eight hours of sleep every night. We go to bed really early because Lennon goes to bed at like 8 o'clock, and we watch a little TV, and then I'm usually asleep by like 10 p.m. So even if I'm getting up at 5 or 6 in the morning, 5:30, I still had more sleep than I ever had in my 20s. And delegation and all the other cliche things, we have to look at what is giving us the illusion of productivity versus real productivity. Are we mindlessly scrolling? Are we sitting and checking emails like Publishers Clearinghouse is magically going to email us with that $100 million windfall? Like, we do that so often. And with technology, something like your phone can be a gift and a curse. Usually it's more of a curse than a gift from personal experience. I feel like if we just focus on the work, it doesn't take that much time. What takes the time is wanting to be in the mood, needing to feel like it, overthinking. I don't know if I only had, you know what, man, I'm going to wait till I get paid because I need a better microphone for the camera that I have. I need a light. I saw something that Adam posted where he had a nice light. I need a better light. There's plugins that just came out. Warm Audio just came out with a new mic that's going to be better than what I have, I think. Like, all these dumb things that we just make excuses for and feel validated in. Use what you have until what you have pays for what you want. I've been preaching that for over a decade now. It works. Use what you have in your fitness to get that better. Use what you have in your relationship. I think one of my mentors years ago said, Adam, no matter what we're talking about, the solutions are within the systems. If your relationship isn't what you want it to be, there's something wrong with your system. If your health and fitness is not what you need it to be, something wrong in your system. If your own happiness levels are not where you want them to be, something's wrong with your system. Same with business. So if you can really remove the noise, everything we do is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. We're musicians. We make music, product. We need traffic to the product. Then we need to be able to monetize the product in some way. So we need to attract attention, retain attention, and convert attention. That's all it is. All it is. Pretty much any business. That's all it is. So we overcomplicate it. Oh, I need to figure out how to go viral on TikTok. Well, in the time it took you to try to figure out how to go viral, you could have had consistent 1,000 view videos. For 30 days, that's 30,000 views versus the one video that you hope to get 30,000 views. Because in your world, that's viral.
Yeah. And, I'm thinking about the Nick D interview you did. Like, that's what he says too, right? He was like, well, that's the thing is like, and the thing that you think is going to be the thing probably isn't even the thing anyways. So stop trying to make it like everything's like, because like a lot of people that I've worked with, they're like, they think their first song is going to win them the Grammy. And when it doesn't, they stop. And it's like, well, I don't know. That's a whole question of like more like, your what you want to do with it anyways. But I just, just getting like into that place where it's like the consistency is key. I remember something you said a super long time ago. And actually I think about this is like, you said as soon as you wake up, first thing you do is make the bed, because then you are already productive with your day. And I literally do that because of you saying that, of whatever point that was. So it's like just starting your day wherever. And, you said, 5:30 to, you're still working a full work day. It's just you're adjusting towards your strengths, and your productivity time there. And I love that. And I think that's so important. Yeah, because like we can sit there and just want to see, this is the next video is gonna show me what I need to know to unlock the secrets. It's like, just put the phone down, do the thing that makes you actually excited, and just do that a bunch, because I feel like we have an unending well of inspiration when we dig into what we really love to do, and there's a great quote I love. He was talking in terms of songwriting, but I think this just applies across the board. It's like, an amateur will work when they are inspired. A professional will work until they are inspired. And I think that is like really critical to like reshift that, because like you can sit down at any point and generate incredible content or whatever, but like if you only do it when you're feeling pumped up, that's going to be fleeting.
100%. One thing I've been saying a lot lately, it's been kind of my mantra for the past 6 months easy, is your repetition builds your reputation in every facet of life. Yeah. If you are a great husband, if you are outwardly loving to your family and your children, and you put in the work and put in the effort, that's your reputation, even if just to them. If you are going and working on your health and fitness, you're trying to breathe life into other people, that's your reputation. If you're constantly gossiping about other people, talking about politics and how life is unfair and how, hopefully somebody helps you live a better life, like that's going to be your reputation. And side note, people don't like hanging out with that person. So if I go out and I make content and I'm not afraid to fail, and I make music and I'm not afraid to fail, and I start a business and I'm not afraid to fail, I go up to this girl that I'm attracted to and I'm not afraid to fail, hence my wife 7-8 years later. That's the only way we do epic stuff in our life. The only way. Because we are programmed to work for somebody else who had a dream and just tells us, hey, there's a spot over here, go sit over there and do this work. And that's fine. The world needs those people. But if you're watching this, musicians in general are builders, we're dreamers, we're inspired. We're not that person, because there's a calling inside of us that's beyond that. Mm-hmm. And so many people will be like, well, Adam, I don't know what to write on social media. Buddy, you're writing songs. You're creative. You have an imagination. You're using words and the things that are up in your head to put something real out to the world to impact others. You do know how to write email marketing sequences. You do know how to write you just need to practice. Because just like one thing that gets under my skin a little bit, if I'm being honest with you, is people, such as yourself, musicians, we pick up a guitar, we buy a keyboard, and we say, you know what? I think I'm going to be able to play 4 chords. I'm going to be able to play a few songs by the end of the summer. I'm going to play some music in the next year. I want to see how good I can get by doing it every day. And then we post 2 things on Instagram, be like, oh, the algorithm hates me. It's like, you didn't get good at your instrument by just playing it 45 minutes once a month. You do it because you're passionate. You want to learn it. Same goes for social media. Same goes for production. Same goes for working out. You got to put in the work for an extended period of time to be able to build anything out of it, right? And so learn social media like it's an instrument. Learn communication like it's an instrument. Learn to be vulnerable or be a little bit more transparent with your day-to-day, to have deeper connections with those that matter to you. Like, all of those should be played like an instrument. Guys like John Mayer been doing it. People look at it, oh, it's so easy for him. Yeah, 30 years will do that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I'm totally there with you. And I feel like we're in this society right now where it's like, we want to just, go to arcade, drop a loop in, and then all of a sudden we're a music producer. And like, that isn't untrue, because we can use those tools, but there's no replacement for the time. There's no replacement for those hours. And the thing is too, is like, don't feel like you have to do it, but don't expect the result the same way from those who do that, because,
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on just for 2 seconds here. I think about things like, in a weird way sometimes, but I'm like, okay, if I wanted to become an engineer, I can't just say, yeah, I'm an engineer. Well, did you go to school? Did you work for a firm? No, I'm an engineer. If I say I'm a lawyer, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I think in some cases, certain titles, like, oh, I'm a police officer, I can go to jail for claiming to be something that I'm not. It's not what it's like to be a musician or an independent artist. Oh, I'm a songwriter. How many songs have you wrote? Well, I'm going to. So people look at something that other people have earned, a title, lawyer, doctor, engineer, nurse, dentist. That took them at least 4 to 6 years to get that certification, followed through, get all the way to the finish line, to then be at the starting line for actually being able to do it themselves. We pick up an instrument, we buy a MIDI controller. 6 months later, you're like, oh yeah, I'm a super producer. I'm a musician. It's like, no, you're not. Like, not really. Just like people are like, oh, I'm a independent artist with my music business. How much money have you made? None. Well, you don't have a business. Sorry. You could have an LLC without having a business. Like, once you own a business, you know what I mean? Once you own a business and you're shouldering all that stress and all that responsibility, you know what it's like to be a business owner, not just pretending, a wantrepreneur versus an entrepreneur. And so I feel like the title, it has such a low barrier of entry these days where everybody already has a computer for the most part. And sometimes you could just do it on your phone. I mean, I see producers all the time that are just producing from their phone. Literally, like after you have a phone or a computer, like $100 for a software program like FL Studio, and then you make beats and you put them up for free. You do all this stuff for free. I mean, obviously, it's a bit of a time suck at times, but you are now labeling yourself with the same label as greats that came before us. You know, am I a musician compared to Simon and Garfunkel? Am I a musician compared to John Williams? No. There's levels to this, you know what I mean? So that's where I think a lot of the frustration comes. The identity comes before it's earned. And I think that we should take more pride in earning the identity rather than just self-proclaiming.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to the humility piece, right? Is like understanding where you are, being okay with where you are, and not comparing yourself to where other people's are, other than in terms of like inspiration. You know, like,
yes,
hey, like John Mayer is amazing at guitar. I want to be like that. I am not like that now, but I will work to be that way. And being just being comfortable in your own skin. And I know that's a cliche thing to say, but like, I feel like that is such a time saver because there's so much like flexing that goes on, especially with the internet, because we're allowed to be whatever character we want, you know, like, but the reality is like, just do your, especially in terms of like, you know, as a lot of listeners are faith-based musicians and artists and songwriters here, like you don't have to be anything other than what God's wanting you to be. So like, don't waste the time trying to be something else. Cause it's just all it's going to do is just suck the life out of you.
Yeah. I think a lot of musicians, and this is going to be kind of a hot take, but like a lot of musicians would be a lot happier just doing it as a hobby rather than chasing it as a career. Cause like, there's no stability in music.
No,
there is none. That's an illusion. Unless you have like a #1 hit record in secular radio for like 16 weeks and you have a really good deal in place and you're like a Nick D getting 1 million streams a day, you can have a hot summer. You can have a 5-year run, but so many people will have a 5-year run and they think it's going to last forever. So they spend all the money. They don't invest it. And then when it starts drying up, they're like, oh, I was done dirty. Oh, the music industry didn't treat me the way it should have. So, you know, but in that 5 years, I promise you that there were probably dozens of great opportunities to shift and pivot and bring, you know, new revenue streams in and all that stuff. So, if you look at artists in the secular realm, even guys like, I know it's kind of cliche, but like Lecrae, they build their wealth through investments outside of music. Once the music makes them rich, the other things make them wealthy. Riches will go, wealth will stick. So Rihanna's like a billionaire because of her makeup brand. Rick Ross is like a billionaire because he has Wingstops and he has a alcohol brand. And, you know, you have all these people that have sustainability. Same with athletes. I think musicians need to look at themselves like athletes because, I mean, we're going to be in a prime for a certain amount of time. And then we have to do something else. I mean, we can always make music. You can always be a worship leader. You can always provide to the community. You could always mentor other people. But Drake is not going to be Drake in 20 years.
Right.
Kendrick Lamar, John Bellion, like they're not going to be those people in 15 years. So it's like, we're here for a good time, not a long time. And so you got to make it count. And the expectations that we put on our own shoulders are to our own detriment so many times, because no one cares if you make music. No one cares if you chase your dream. Obviously, your significant other and family support you. But if you said, I'm going to go work in construction and that's going to make me happy, those who love you would be supportive of that. They just want you to be okay. So whether that's music, a day job, a different business, I'm thinking about launching a whole new program called Middle-Aged Musician, where it's like, if you've been making music for 15 years and you're just at the end of your rope because you have family and other things going, let me teach you how to make a different type of business out of all the skill sets that you've grown. Because that's where I'm at in my life. And so I can breathe life into other people based on where I'm at right now, not where I was 10 years ago. So, in Middle-Aged Musician is not a technical, you're middle-aged if you're 30. It's more of a marketing piece of this is where we're going with this, right? So just so many different ideas, so many different things. We just have to figure out how to harness it and simplify, because the simpler your business and your life is, the more at peace you can be. I know we try to live this American dream. They sell us a bit of a bait and switch when it comes to that, because we fall into this overworking, always stressed. Stress is comfortable. We don't need to live that way. We just have to figure out what matters the most, live within our means, and find a way that feels like us.
Man, that's like mic drop right there. That's awesome. Yeah. So you just said all of it, but I always like to ask people, what is a piece of advice you give to your younger self? And I know that's a long list, but I love that middle-aged musician thing. That's so smart, because that's also a huge untapped, blue ocean, as they would say, right? Because all the labels are 20-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, but that's a small amount of people who quit in 5 seconds. The people are still doing it in their, later years with the experience. And I always felt like, as a songwriter, you don't have much to say until you get some life under your belt,
Yeah,
So
100%.
So I love that idea. But what's some advice that you give anyone listening, as they're either getting started or they're along the journey? Maybe they're beyond. Maybe they're in the 65 years old. I don't know. But what's something you tell them to encourage them along their journey?
I'd say that you have to protect your time, because it's fleeting. It's you blink, and anybody that's watching or listening to this that's over 28 years old knows that. It's I remember what it was like to feel be 17. It feels like 18 months ago, right? At times. I think that we have to stop putting so many expectations on our shoulders based on where our vision takes us, and allow ourselves to put in the work now to reach our vision. Because this is how I feel about it. I genuinely feel this way. God gives you a vision for the reality that could be reality if you put in the work consistently to get to it. It's like seeing the future, but you can't just wait for that future to come, because it won't. You have a vision for the future that if you work, you'll get there. And this has happened in my life so many times, not on the same time frame that I wanted it to, but it's happened so many times. And I feel like we are instilled with the ability, the gift to have a vision, whether our eyes are open or closed. Say, this is what my life looks like. This is how I feel. We could taste it. We could smell it. You can describe it in vivid detail. No idea how we're going to get there, but through God, a little bit of manifestation and a whole lot of hard work, intentional hard work, I think each and every one of us, regardless of age, can get there within reason. You have to be realistic. Right. I know that that's a dream killer for some people, but if I'm 5'8", which I am, and 39 years old, I could have a vision or a dream of being in the NBA. Well, might need to shift the vision. Might need to let God show me a new opportunity. And so when we're looking at all of that, I want you guys to think of a big mason jar that you'd see like pickles or something in. Big mason jar.
The Costco one.
A big Costco mason jar, 100%. And think about what that looks like, full to the brim with grains of rice. Now, a lot of people worry too much with an empty jar. How many grains of rice am I going to need to fill this thing? The people that ultimately end up filling those things is by putting one grain of rice in at a time until it's full. Next thing you know, it's overflowing. Next thing you know, you need another mason jar. So putting in the work repeatedly, day after day, breathing life into other people, the right people that breathe life back into you. Because God knows, I know what it's like to pull people up. And in a dark moment, you feel like, who's pulling me up? That's when you got to get real with your faith. You got to get real with your circle of influence. You got to get real with what you're ingesting, what you're pumping into your brain. Are you reading books? Are you listening to people that inspire? Or are you mindlessly scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, getting into arguments on Facebook over opinions that don't really matter or serve you? I think that if I could give my earlier self any advice, it's give myself more grace. Don't try to chase 15 rabbits at one time because you won't catch any of them. And just keep believing. Just keep putting in the work because eventually it happens. And the journey is what the fun part is, not the destination. Because honestly, man, this is going to sound a little pompous, which I understand. When I took delivery of my Lamborghini, probably 2-3 years ago, it was coming off the truck and it felt surreal, but I was bored with it. Like the next day, I was like, okay, cool. Like, cool. What's next? Same when I got the little YouTube plaque, which is back here somewhere. I didn't open the box to open up my YouTube plaque for 8 months. True story. I was like, okay, I have other awards from marketing awards and distinctions or whatever, and business awards and stuff. They're like collecting dust in a different room. Like that's the awards and the accomplishments are all documenting what you've done, not what you're doing. Wow. So I think that falling in love with that process and having value and confidence that's key. And that only comes from the repetition, because we don't get good at golf by thinking about golf. We can talk about golfing an hour a day. We can watch as many YouTube videos. We can go and listen to golf podcasts. But if we don't go do something with what we're learning and give it a try and dial it in, you never get good at it. And that goes for music, that goes for business, that goes for family, that goes for parenting. You gotta do it. I never realized the importance of the Nike slogan, just do it, until I was like in my 30s. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. I mean, I'm feeling encouraged, inspired by that. So I know anyone listening definitely is too. And it's been great to have you on. And man, like I said, I've been following you for a long time. Not in a creepy way, just in a social media way. And so it's awesome to actually sit down and, man, you're only right around the corner. But before we go, I always like to ask for people to, what's the best way for people to connect with you, to stay? I know obviously we'll link it all below, but let them know how they can find you.
It's pretty straightforward. Adam Ivy, Adam Ivy, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, my own website, which I'm in the final stages of redesigning. If you want to check out my music stuff, I just recommend going to musicmarketing.com, which takes you right to my YouTube channel. And I'm about to step into a new chapter of my life with a lot more creative entrepreneur-based content, which I think a lot of people that are watching this or listening to this will get a ton of value out of. I'm not going to just be serving musicians, but I think that that's the best way to do it, is because musicians are builders, musicians are entrepreneurs, the ones that really want a career out of it anyway. And the content that I could share to a wider audience is going to serve musicians in ways that they never knew they needed that content. So come say what's up, follow me, send me a DM, get to know you guys. And man, I appreciate the opportunity. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. And before we go, I always like to pray over the guests before we go. So let me do that. God, thank you so much for Adam. Thank you so much for his ability to keep chasing after all the many opportunities you're putting in front of him, God. And as he is just getting in there, getting his hands dirty in the work, not being afraid to be a servant leader and show people what he's learned, not keeping it all to himself, God, and knowing that that's the way that we stay inspired, and that's the way that we can do amazing things in this life. Is not just our own pursuits, but it's pouring in and mentoring and teaching others how to do that. So we pray for extra inspiration as he enters into this new season where he's got a family and another baby on the way. We pray that second baby comes quick and healthily, and that it's going to be just a fun season to lead into. We thank you for the time we spent today, and we pray that anyone listening is inspired and encouraged to keep doing your work and your will and their own journey. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I appreciate that, brother. Awesome, I really appreciate the time. Guys, just keep your head up, stay inspired, surround yourself with the people that make you feel the best, and you got this.